Yes. And I just remember one sentence that I heard my teacher say this last week, my Australian teacher. And she says, wow, we all think we are working with our body and through our body. We are actually working our mind. And the body is just a tool.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Yoga Teachers Talk, a series of conversations with yoga teachers from different walks of life to understand their journeys, their beliefs, and their influences that will hopefully give us insight and food for thought for our own journeys, for our own yoga journeys. And today I have with me Susanne, who is someone who I've known for a while now. We did a yoga retreat last year in Italy, which unfortunately we could not do it, this time because of the pandemic. But Susanne is someone who's been practicing yoga for a very long time, particularly Iyengar yoga. Today we're going to talk to her about her journey and her insights into how her yoga practice has changed through the different phases of her life, at different ages, how she's had to kind of modify the yoga practice to suit a particular time in her life. You're a certified yoga teacher, level 2, is it?
Yes. And so the Iyengar system has these levels, or had these levels. It's all in the process of change now. So yes, okay. I've done that certification 5 years ago.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And how long have you been practicing yoga? When did you start your journey?
That was pretty early on. It actually started with like a waking interest in other cultures. In my teens, really. So first was sitting in meditation along the transcendental meditation that then, I think, more or less after us or same time as us, the Beatles discovered. So when they went to India and started training with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. So that was the time in the late 60s, early 70s, so a long time ago. And then after that, we understood there's more to it. There's stuff like, really physical exercise, so yoga. So I think my first yoga class when I was maybe 18 or something, and then forgot about it again or something else. I was also a dancer at the time, or did dance training, ballet and stuff. So it kind of meandered back and forth. But when I traveled, after having, done my high school diploma and then having gone out and worked and made some money to also later on finance my studies and stuff, I got together with 2 friends and we traveled through South America for 1.5 years. And during that time, I grabbed a little book in a secondhand bookstore somewhere. I don't know, it was Buenos Aires or Santiago, I don't know. It was just like out for 50 cents. And I thought, okay, it said yoga for Americans. So I wasn't American, but it looked like it had a few pictures in it and stuff to explain what's going on.
That's by Indra Devi?
Exactly, yeah. I didn't know who Indra Devi was, but the explanations were very good. So we were traveling, the 3 of us, in a VW bus. So in the morning, I had a strong urge to get out. It was tight, so I opened the door, got out, took my blanket and a little book and started practicing. So anywhere we parked, we usually try to park somewhere a little bit out in the country. And so my first thing was I find my place. So it's had to feel all right. It had to be level, blah, 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 because I was practicing headstand with no wall or anything. So I'm practicing headstand. So basically that's where I started. And I didn't know that Indra Devi was in the lineage of Krishnamacharya and all that. I wasn't aware of that. That only occurred to me much later when, after lots and on and off and losing a yoga teacher and like being in limbo again and then trying to do my own thing didn't really work at the time. But that doesn't really work. My own practice didn't really work before I did the yoga teacher training, really.
Oh, okay. And so then when did the first teacher, when did you decide that, okay, I should, go to a teacher and learn in the proper way, so to speak?
That was pretty much when I started working in Munich, when I started my actual career after having gone through studies. So it was in Munich. I was working on computers at the time for video post-production and computer animation and stuff. So lots of sitting. And so I looked around, and Munich in Bavaria is a big city, and it offers a lot of stuff. So I found the Shivananda Yoga Center there. So that's where I went for a few years, and that's when we got a certain kind of sequence, and I kind of understood a little more. And they also had like afternoons where they did the kirtan singing with the harmonium. I don't know, it has a name. I don't know the name. So that got me a little bit more into it. And then I changed jobs again and places again. So I lost it again, because Shivananda wasn't happening everywhere. It was not back in Stuttgart where I went to then. So I kind of was in limbo again, and so on and off.
Okay. So, but do you think, like, was there any reason for why you waited a particular amount of time before you decided to explore teachers? Was there anything, that drove you to a teacher?
Yeah, actually, it was like the Shivananda people. They asked me pretty early on if I would want to do the teacher training, and they said something. Yeah, you can go to Trivandrum in Kerala, and they have I don't know, it has a new name now, so it was Trivandrum at that time.
Trivandrum, yes, yeah.
Yes, and like in 4 weeks to do a teacher training, and I thought, that doesn't quite sound right to me. There must be more depth, and that takes more time. The 4 weeks is nothing for me to do it. I just couldn't believe it. And it wasn't on at the time because I was very involved in my work field, and I couldn't see myself traveling to India at that point.
Right.
It was always a place where I thought, I don't know if I can, if I can do that with who I am. And
so then, between the time that you first discovered, like an Eastern practice, and that you went to like a Shivananda class, it was about a decade?
Yeah, pretty much. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So more or less in the late 80s, I went to the Shivananda and went there regularly because I felt it felt good.
Okay.
And yeah, and then again, by the time I stumbled into the Iyengar yoga system, another more or less 15 years passed.
Wow. How did it change? How did your practice change?
Okay. Yeah, the fact that actually in the beginning I got introduced to meditation, sitting practice. Like when we got introduced to the transcendental meditation, everybody got their individual mantra. So I knew that. So whenever there was turmoil in my life, that was the first thing I would do, just sit and try and calm my crazy spirit or mind or whatever is going up there with the dancing monkeys and stuff. So that was the first thing. I didn't really, I think at the time, I didn't really connect the asanas with like coming to peace of mind. It was more like this physical and breathing, and that was more connected with the asanas.
Right.
What is now happening after all these many years, it's more like I do understand that the asanas are actually there to calm our mind, to really concentrate and to take the senses to the inside, and just like an inside perception of what is happening in the body to help calm the monkey.
Yeah. I think nowadays a lot of like young students, they want to go after the asanas. They do go after the asanas. It's hard to ask young people to sit down and just focus and concentrate. They don't see any merit to that. They don't see the benefit of that. And their attention spans are not so great. So, but it's quite interesting that you started with sitting down. And then as you got deeper into the practice, and as you grew older and more mature in terms of understanding things and, understanding yourself and your mind, that's when you came to asana.
I think you're quite right that the time right now, and when we started doing like the sitting practice, there was no smartphone around.
Yeah.
There was no internet around.
Yeah.
It was not there. Actually, the internet and all the website stuff started when I already was teaching at college, at university.
Mhm.
I remember one of my students pointing out to me that this was a possibility to dive into, and I said, okay, let's go for it. Let's have a look and stuff. So when we were sitting, there was nothing. We had a home phone where our parents kept a very eagle eye on it, that we don't use it unnecessarily.
Yeah.
So that was all. So we had a lot of more peace.
You started with, that website that you're describing where you're underlining and it go, the hyperlink. And today you're teaching yoga online.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah. How long did it take you to inculcate your own personal yoga practice? A lot of people feel bad that they're unable to motivate themselves to get on the mat every day. So how long did it take you? And do you have any advice for young students?
As the Buddha says, life is suffering. lots of people come to yoga when they suffered from something. It's usually a physical ailment.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much also what got me there, because with sitting, preparing all my lectures, sometimes I realized, or increasingly I realized, okay, I've been sitting now focused and burned into the computer for hours. So the pain that really got into my body, hips and knees, really led me to a point where I said, okay, I got to do something. So that was like when I was, I would say, in my early 50s, and ran into an old friend who told me, I was just asking, how are you doing? And he said, oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing yoga. And I looked at him. He was not a yogi type at all. He was a pianist. He was also sitting a lot, practicing the piano. And I said, is it good? And he said, yes, it's great. I got rid of my migraine, which was hunting me or hurting me all my life. And for the last 3 years, I didn't have one migraine attack. And I said, well, that sounds good. And so let's go. And that was the Iyengar yoga.
In your 50s.
Mm-hmm. Early 50s. And I mean, just like going back to, just because I hurt, my body started hurting.
Right.
From wear and tear and hurting. Yeah. Actually, that's in Iyengar yoga. I see a lot of people who come for that reason, because their body hurts. Then there are some physiotherapists that have found out that Iyengar yoga offers a lot through the props.
Did you ever think about did you maybe explore other lineages as well, or other styles also?
I tell you, I tried. After having gone through teacher training, which makes you feel like you're really sitting in a pot with a tight lid on, with all the other people who are just, saying, okay, Iyengar yoga is it. It's the most correct, and it's most, refined and whatever best way.
Yeah.
I thought, okay, now I've done my certification. I can open the lid and I can look out. So I tried with a vinyasa teacher.
Okay.
To go through 1 or 2 sessions, and I got out and I thought, no way. And when I look around and see the people around me who have never done, learning how to really place your feet, the knees, how to work towards alignment, I thought, oh my God, these guys are hurting their body doing that, really trying hard to do things that the body isn't ready and the mind isn't connected.
How valuable do you think it is for us to explore other styles as well, and to keep maybe an open mind? Do you think, would you recommend it? Let's say somebody has decided that this is my, the path for me, or the yoga for me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if someone is really into it, there was a yoga kind of conference here in our town. So different lines of yoga came together and made, it must have been this year, because we all kept distance. And so there were different yoga teachers on the podium, and the group that, or the mass of people that have come together in the park worked or practiced with them. And so there was Kundalini yoga teacher, and I think there was one of ours, an Iyengar yoga teacher, and a few others, lineages. Right. So we all came together. And when I looked around and I saw the people, and I thought, okay, there are lots of people, different people. There are young people who, look for a certain aspect that maybe they find in yoga. Yeah. And there are other people who, a friend of mine, she's also younger than I am. She's like 15 years younger than I am. She's a total zealous person in anything, in her business, in everything. She's full on in the vinyasa thing, and she's like putting people together and said, let's practice every day now. So I'll pick some video for us and we go together, and I send you the link, and everybody's practicing together on screen. So I think that's great. I mean, if it helps them, if they feel good about it. And then I have another friend who is also a little bit younger, like 10 years, she's in her 50s, mid to end 50s. She's a very active person. She could not deal with Iyengar yoga because staying in a pose and refining the pose and really pulling your senses inside and looking at your body from inside and connecting your mind with everything, every part of your body, she couldn't stand it.
Yeah.
I'm easy. I started out, and found my way because of my needs. And so I think there are other, stages of life where you have different needs. And
Oh, so I mean, more in terms of like, sometimes as yoga practitioners, we could be dogmatic.
Oh, yeah.
So in terms, like with that view in mind, do you encourage that every once in a while, all of us kind of step out from our comfort classroom, the classrooms that we're so comfortable with, the teachers, for instance, that we're so comfortable with, and look at some other places? Like, would you recommend that as a good practice for people who are interested in yoga? Every once in a while, maybe not all the time. Maybe we don't have to keep teacher hopping and style hopping, but do you think there's any value to that? Like, you explored all these different styles, and then you were in a class with the Kundalini yoga people, and there's always some insight that we gain. So do you think it's there's value to that?
Well, I think so. If it may also turn into a good exercise of not judging, and just to step out of dogmatic feelings. I mean, that's really what I felt when I walked out of that first vinyasa class after I had done my teacher training in Iyengar yoga, and we were drilled to do things a certain way, and we were told why, and why should you really watch the alignment of your body, what does it do to you, that will give you the poise and the equilibrium, because you do bring things together. It's a different approach. I started really going into my dogma. I realized, and I thought, oh, I better keep my distance for now. Just lately, it's funny, being German, it's also a very hard thing to bring into yoga, because Germans tend to be dogmatic, tend to know everything better than the rest of the world. It's somehow, I don't know, I just read it in the paper again. We are the born know better people. They know best what should happen there. So that happens in yoga as well. It's pretty tragic, actually. And so I encountered that. And even when I practiced in Australia, I asked my teacher, why are you sitting in Virasana with open knees? Look at light on yoga. Iyengar is sitting with closed knees, and we were taught and drilled to have the knees together. And she said, come on, relax. It's more about looking at each knee and see, like, inside, outside of the knee, are they both like, same kind of going down? If one goes down, you're not aligned. If your inside goes down because you feel the need to put your knees together like that, and then you have knees like that, no, not good. Just look at them. Just look and just feel into your own body and into your own needs. And that's what I'm doing now that I'm like old, 65, I feel my body has needs that I need to follow. And, you know, when I was younger, that didn't matter so much. It's hard to step out of what you know best for yourself.
Right.
But, you know, I've seen things, and also that the needs change. Lately, I'm coming back to where I came from, and I find sitting down quietly and just starting maybe with some breathing and pranayama,
Right.
then just sitting and watching what's going on. The initial times when, you know, when I started meditating, it was also the time of taking drugs and hallucinogens to speed up the expansion of our kind of limits up here.
Right.
I never got into that because I was scared of losing the plot.
Have you ever been without a teacher?
Yes.
And how did you deal with the practice then?
I was looking around. I remember one period in my life, my son was little at the time, and I had gone to a teacher here who did, like, you know, once a week. It wasn't, you know, but it was a good time, and I felt, okay, this is at least a little thing, an anchor for me for the inside. And then he, with his wife, who was the ballet director and was called to Santiago, she left and he left with her. So bang, there we were, no teacher. And so I asked around, and then someone told me about somebody who was also, who had trained with him and is offering classes. So I went to her, and for a little while, but it was very tame yoga. It was okay for a while. It's always like, it's like in my work field. I'm curious into a new field. I work for a while, and then I have a feeling, okay, I've done it all. Next, I need more. I want to go deeper. I want to go on. So same thing happens with yoga. And so she, at one point at the end of the class, said, okay, I'm going to that yoga studio there and there, and I'm going to bring something or pick up something there, whatever. Do you want to come? And so I said, yeah, I want to come. And so that must have been a restorative Iyengar yoga session when that had just ended when we arrived. So I looked around and, Jesus, lots of furniture here, lots of chairs and blah, blah, blah. I didn't quite get what they were doing.
Right.
So, but in the end, it turned out this was the studio that this pianist friend of mine had pointed out to me, and where I basically ended up going, intensified my weekly practice to 3 times a week if I could, you know, with my son and work and stuff, and then eventually where I teach now. So that was it. But being without a teacher, when you have just really found a rhythm, is really hard.
Okay, so you suggest that we should always try and look for teachers, and
I would say so.
Yeah, but not give up the practice just because you don't have a teacher. Continue doing something every day. Yes,
but I know what you said in the beginning. It's a really tough one to keep the discipline.
Yeah.
To hit the mat every day. It's something that where you have to really kick your own butt.
Yeah. So,
and that doesn't end.
Yeah, it doesn't end. Yes. Yeah. What advice would you give to yoga students? What advice in terms of practice? How can they just keep coming back to the practice and maybe even stay authentic and true to the practice?
Well, I think it's really, it's not so much about looking out and looking what's pretty and, oh, I want to do this pose because it looks so nice and stuff. Then you can really do stuff that will hurt you. But I think it's more like really feeling inside, what is your need? What is it that you really need? Sometimes it may all just be sitting. Just be sitting still and then wait for some impulse to come and do something. But I think really, if you're young and if you have little experience, find a teacher.
Okay. And in closing, what advice would you give to people, just generally, people who are practicing yoga during the pandemic? So we are in the sense that we are in lockdown, like a lot of countries now are in lockdown. We're practicing at home. What advice would you give for that?
I think it has to do with an inner attitude. To be alive when everything around you goes crazy, and you have the chance to roll out your mat and do things there that make you feel very alive. It has to do with some, feeling of even devotion,
Wow.
like being very grateful to, yes, I am alive and my body is here with me and I can do some practice. I can do my body good. I
Right.
have the chance to do my body good, to help myself, and I'm very grateful for that. I think that could be an attitude to help further the daily practice.
That's lovely. That's beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. I've taken a lot more of your time than I intended to. You can see everything is dark in India now.
Thank you very much for asking me. Her mind was kind of going like, no, I need action. So it's not like just do this and do that and look pretty. And so when I stepped out of that one, I was like, oh my God, like, I know it better. I mean, even the German people among themselves, when they watch, there's a Sunday night series, detective story series, and I just read it's like a 50-year anniversary of that series, and people are accompanying it with Twitter and commenting.
Right, yeah.
It's the same thing as in soccer. German soccer fans are actually the trainers. They know better.
You heard of the book called Living with the Himalayan Masters?
No.
So it was written by a guy who started the Himalayan Institute, the Himalayan yoga.
Yeah. The one that does all those products.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So the guy, so that man's guru was also Ram Dass's guru.
Ah, okay. Yeah.
Baba. They have somewhere in Rishikesh or something. They have a ashram. Yeah. And I think Beatles also went to the same one. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they toured.
Yeah.
About those two guys like Timothy Leary, who was the guy who started doing experiments while he was a professor in psychology and at Harvard. Started offering classes and seminars on exploring, taking drugs and just explore what's going on in your mind and then do studies on it. And his idea was just to bring hallucinogenic drugs like mushrooms and stuff into the society, and says, okay, if only 4% of the American population would have these experiences, we would have more peace. That people would understand what love and peace is about, really. So that was the time. Of course, sooner or later, the FBI thought this guy is dangerous and so on. So they pulled him out. But he had worked together with another guy, Richard Alpert, who was also like working in the field and doing all these research. And while Timothy Leary was kind of more or less put in prison, Richard Alpert said, okay, I'm not going to end my story here. I know I have experienced that there is more than we in our like Western training can perceive. I want to go and see what else is there. So he went to India and he stayed for a long time with a guru, and eventually came back, and he had the new name. He was Ram Dass.
Oh, okay. So that's Ram Dass. Okay.
Yeah. So that's Ram Dass. And so Ram Dass, he only died a very short time ago. I think end of last year, beginning of this year. I don't think so.
I think
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think not this year, but the year like last year.
Yeah, it could be, yes. So he has a strong followership in the US, and they put together stuff. So one of Ram Dass' students is Krishna Das, who also had a very, very early kind of calling for looking what else is there. It couldn't just end here with all our consumerism and all this, have and have and have. There must be more in the being. And I think that's an urge that people have had all through the centuries. I mean, it's some people just have more of a calling and some don't, and maybe it has to do with karma or that idea. I don't know.
Yeah.
And so Krishna Das is the guy who offers chanting lectures, more or less, and tells about his story. So I went a little bit into the chanting.
Okay.
Can we take a little break right now? I have to run to the
Sure.
stove.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Just half a minute.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make bread.
Whole wheat or just regular bread?
Oh, I got my grinding machine back from my ex.
Okay.
So I ground the grain yesterday.
Oh,
Spelt.
Which grain? Wheat?
Spelt or spelt is the equivalent. We call it in Germany. We call it Dinkel, but I don't think that word exists. So I can.
I've heard of this. Okay.
I can look it up. No, spelt is something that we use a lot in Germany. Spelt flour, yes, spelt bread, spelt flour. It says also known as Dinkel wheat or whole wheat is a species of wheat that has been cultivated since approximately 5000 BC.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, should we continue?
Anyway. Okay. It all comes together. And I think still, I mean, in India, it's a different culture. So you have a different background to lean on than the Westerners do.
And I think that's what's making it so interesting. I think like that's what's, what is intriguing me, because we're all coming to yoga, but we're coming from such different places. And it just makes me think that, wow, this practice is so powerful. One of the most powerful practices of all time. It's just bringing everybody together.
Yes.